So there's an innocent core routine. And a core routine is something that we used as a terminology within the Deep Nature Connection facilitator training process, okay? There was core routines that were practiced by our collective ancestry that activated our, say, our neurology, maybe. I'm not sure where it is, because I'm not sure science quite knows where this is, to be honest. I think we will discover a connection system. Like we have a nervous system, a skeletal system, a muscular system. I think we will discover a connection system because there's a pattern language there. And it's absolutely predictable, and it always follows the same pattern. So our cultural routines, ancestrally speaking, brought us into this neurological, experiential pattern experience that just blew up things for us and then activated things. And the postmodern world does not do that. So we artificially stimulate the same response through things we call core routines, okay? One of them is something we call the sit spot. I'm sitting in mine now. Yes, there's a fence behind me, but I'm actually out on my side patio. And the core routine of the sit spot basically means to come outside, tea in hand, phone even, you know. Don't do all your work at your sit spot, but if you have to choose between being inside and outside, choose outside, bottom line. Sit outside, get to know the insects that fly around out here, get to know the birds that are always on the fence, get to know them as neighbors, because they are neighbors, and build a connection with them. Don't analyze them as a species that needs to be identified. Get to know them as Bob or Sally, this house cat that I always see over here. I don't even know the cat's name, but I know this cat now. Like we have this relationship going. I see it at all times of day and night because I come out here at all times of day and night. So I know the stars. I know the North Star is right there. I know where the sun is rising right now, where the moon is rising, what phase the moon is in. And, this is the sit spot. And what it basically means is to build a relationship back through your senses, back to nature. Now, people will say, well, that has nothing to do with the leadership journey, but I will challenge you and say that it has everything to do with the leadership journey. How you relate to your sit spot will have grand implications in how do you relate to your own experience of being. And if you can drop into the moment because you're in this moment and you become good at hearing the quietest sound in the distance, when you're in a setting of leadership where you have other people that you're working with, you'll hear the quietest sound among the people. And that quiet sound is the source of creativity that allows you to be a leader. But you have to practice that. It's a routine for a reason. So the sit spot that is the grand sit spot that's on the side of a mountain in Yosemite that you go to once a year is not a sit spot in my book. This is not about a peak experience. This is about a daily ingestion of a nutrient that you desperately need for your soul, your spirit, and your power. And it's innocent because it's just a chair in my yard. But it is so much more than that. And after 31 years of doing this for adults, I come to realize that the sit spot is the core routine of all core routines. Now what's interesting about it is that it, in and of itself, is not powerful. So if you just sat outside and then you never did anything with it, it wouldn't change a thing. Because as Tom Brown, my mentor, used to say, it's not the quantity of time you spend outdoors, it's the quality of your connective experience. That's what really drives this equation. So that begs the question, what is the power source of converting just being outside and thinking the whole time to being outside and actually experiencing, right? And the answer is something we call the story of the day, which is the second core routine. So if I got rid of all other core routines, I would keep those two. An experience in nature followed by a story of the day, because they form the cycle. And each time you go around that cycle, you have more integrated connective experience. And then you have more resources to work from tomorrow than you did today. And in the old days, we had film, and we used to take pictures in our camera. And if we forgot to develop that film and we left it in the drawer, it was kind of like we never took the pictures in the first place. So you take that thing, you put it on the envelope, you drop it in the slot at CVS Pharmacy, and you come back a couple days later and you're all excited. It's like opening a Christmas present. And then you find out your thumb was in the picture too many times, or the string was hanging down. And the story of the day is very much like the development of the pictures you've taken. So if you have an experience out here, and then you walk over and see a friend, and then you tell that friend about the experience, and they listen, and that's key. They should listen to you. They shouldn't just nod their head and think about other stuff. They should listen. Because my soul will feel your soul listening. And therefore, my experience of the day will come back through my senses. I'll relive them, and then when I tell them to you, connections will form that I wouldn't have made on my own. So there is a process of, you might call it a debriefing process, that the consciousness requires in order for connection to occur. Otherwise, you can have multiple experiences outside and never make a connection. But if you have people listening on the other side, then you tell the story and you get insight. So if I tell the story to this man over here today from my sit spot this morning, and then this woman over here tomorrow, I tell her the same story, I'm going to see different things in my own story just because I told it to two different kinds of listeners. And therefore different connections are made within me, which is a reflection of our connective field between us and other humans. Because we don't exist in isolation. We're not islands of consciousness unto ourselves. We require the interdependent communication of others to fully develop our own power as communicators. And that communicator isn't just words, it's also almost on a telepathic sense, how we're activated as a connective being. And connection is the key to activating leadership. So the story of the day can be enhanced through being trained in basic questioning process. So you listen, you become curious, and you're like, wow, did you say that bird was all black? And did you say it was a crow? I did. How did you know it wasn't a raven? Because aren't there ravens here too? Oh, that's interesting. I didn't think about that. Maybe it was a raven, and then you have to relive that experience again, and you're like, was it a raven? Gosh, I should have looked more closely, So tomorrow I'm going to come outside and I'm going to look. And we're like, well, it's black like a crow or like a raven, but how do you tell a crow from a raven? And then all of a sudden you're in a field guide and you're looking up crows and ravens. You're like, oh, ravens have a much bigger beak and that kind of funny head thing going on with their feathers. I'll look more closely tomorrow. So then tomorrow comes the bird, the black bird again, and it sits on the fence, and you look at it this time, it blinks and looks at you. And you're like, you are a crow, aren't you? And then And now you own that. Whereas before it was a bird you thought was a crow, but you actually didn't know because you hadn't connected fully with that being. But it was the cycle of communicating that to others and their curiosity that activated your deeper, authentic connection with the crow. Those are 3 core routines. And they play well off each other.